Want to crack one of the most popular defenses in chess? The Sicilian defense is a go-to for top players looking to take control as black, but as white, you can turn the tables. The Sicilian defense begins when you play e4 and black responds with c5. One of the main setups is called the open Sicilian, and it often goes like this. Knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, bishop e3, e5, knight b3, bishop e6, f3, bishop e7, queen d2. You may not play this exact sequence in your games, but many of these moves repeat in different Sicilian variations. By learning this structure, you'll be prepared for similar positions. From here, the usual plan is to castle queenside and maybe play moves like a3 and h3 to see how your opponent reacts. Another strong option is the all-pin variation. After e4 and c5, instead of playing knight f3, you play c3. If black responds with knight f6, you push your e-pawn to e5. Black's best reply is knight d5, and then you play d4. After c takes d4, c takes d4, d6, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight b6, bishop e5, d takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop d7, knight takes d7, queen takes d7. From here, your plan is to continue developing with moves like knight c3 or bishop e3. If you leave your d4 pawn unprotected, black might take it with the queen, which is a big mistake. You'll capture their knight with check, and the queen will be left undefended. If black responds to c3 with knight c6 instead, you can play d4. After c takes d4 and c takes d4, black might push d5 to fight for the center. You take on d5, and if black recaptures with the queen, you develop with knight f3. Black might try to protect the d-pawn by playing bishop g4, but you can respond with bishop e2. If black takes your knight on f3 and prepares to take your d-pawn next, it's the same situation as before. If they take the pawn, you capture their knight with check and win the queen. In this case, black's best move is e6 instead. Your goal from here is to develop, castle, and build a strong middle game. A less common but very sneaky option against the Sicilian is the a3 variation. After e4, c5, you play a3. Black will probably play knight c6, and you follow with b4, offering a pawn. If black takes it, you play c3, then d4. You might be down a pawn, but you control the center. If black tries to challenge with d5, you exchange pawns and play knight a3. Black might develop with knight f6, but you continue with knight b5, threatening a fork. Black may try to defend with queen d8, but that's a mistake. You can push d5. If black takes the pawn, you sacrifice your queen and then deliver a knight fork, winning back the queen and gaining an extra knight. One of the most dangerous traps in the Sicilian is called the poison pawn, which comes from the all-up-in variation. After e4, c5, c3, black might play d5. You push e5, and if black responds with bishop f5, you strike with d4. After the pawns are exchanged, black might think they can take your knight and follow up with queen a5 check to win a pawn. But this is a trap. You calmly play bishop c3, and suddenly black's queen is trapped with no safe squares. Here's another cheeky trap, also from the all-up-in, but one move later. After e4, c5, knight f3, d6, you play c3. If black responds with knight f6, attacking your pawn, you play bishop e2. It looks like you've left a pawn hanging, but if black takes it, you respond with queen a4 check and win their knight. You can set up this trap in slightly different ways, but make sure the position is right before going for it. The Sicilian defense is a powerful option for black, but as white, you can use several strategies to counter it effectively. Key approaches include the open Sicilian, the all-up-in variation, and the sneaky a3 variation. By controlling the center and setting traps, you can surprise your opponent and gain a strong position.